Hello and welcome to the Healthy Desk Body Workshop. My name is Jamie Jones and I'm the Director of the Stretch Specialist. I look forward to taking you through this workshop to give you a bit more education of what happens with your body at work, as we're seated so much these days, whether it's working from home or in the office, and some tricks and tips to help your body feel better at the end of the day. Now, I just want to start with a little disclaimer, just letting you know that all the information in this workshop is general in nature. So please consult a GP or your local allied health professional for any specific individual treatment. Now, what you're going to learn in today's workshop is all about anatomical position. And what is it and why is it so important? All right, some of you may have never heard that term before, but it's a really good place to start so you get to understand what that position is and why it's so important. Then we'll look at the muscles. What role do they play while you're at work? What's happening while you're in that seated position? And what do muscles tell us and how do they work? And then we'll look into the nerves. So the nerves that come out of your spine and control different body parts. And we'll learn all about them and how they give us signals and how they also work as well. And then what is your body actually doing while you're seated at the desk, at the office or at home? As I said, anywhere between 8 to 12 hours in a particular position is a long time, but what's going on during that period of time? And then we'll be able to look at some stretches and some exercises that can help counterbalance that seated position to help you restore some flexibility, allow your muscles to be a little bit more relaxed, and hopefully reduce any stiffness that you may be having from being seated all the time. And all of these movements and stretches can be done at your work desk. There's no need to get changed or into any exercise gear. It's just simple little movements that are going to make a huge difference potentially for you and your body. And then we'll look into the science and how to of diaphragmatic breathing, otherwise known as belly breathing. We hear all the time, make sure you breathe, stop and breathe. What does it actually mean? What's happening to the body during belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing? More importantly, how do we do it? So we'll practice that. You'll actually understand why it's important to stop and take those deep breaths and what's happening with your body. All right, so starting off with what is anatomical position? Well, it's the position what you're in when your muscles are all completely neutral. So if you're standing straight, arms down by your side, nice and tall, and so we don't have any shoulder elevation, we don't have any hip bends, no knee bend, there's no muscles doing anything. Every muscle is completely neutral and nice and happy. All right, and during this position, all your muscles are comfortable. So there's not an overstretch in one direction, there's not a tightness in another direction. Everything is nice and neutral. So muscles are not restricted in perfect balance of each other. All right, it sounds nice because it is nice. So if you can imagine that your trap muscle is elevated a little bit higher, okay, that's going to cause different muscles to stretch. These ones are going to elevate. You start to move away from that anatomical position where all your muscles are happiest and the most comfortable. So if we're talking about getting some food from your hand to your mouth, you have to bend the elbow. We talk about flexing the elbow from anatomical position. So anatomical position is that first position, that complete neutral, that we start to label movements. And that's where therapists can assess you and say, okay, you've got an elevated shoulder. It's lifted up compared to anatomical position. We can see you've got a hip tilt or you've got flexed hips from anatomical position, because we want you to be as close to anatomical position as possible, as often as possible. Now, it's very difficult and it's almost impossible to be perfectly balanced, but we've got to have a maintenance plan to be able to get back to anatomical position as often as possible, because that's when your muscles are happiest and healthiest, and they will work with you much better as well. So this is what it's all about. Yes, you got to use your body. For example, let's say you go for a long walk up a hill. All right, your calf muscles are going to get worked. That's fine. That's awesome. You're building fitness and strength. But then once you use muscles, they tighten. So you need to stretch back out. And this is when you're going to reduce those injuries. When we're seated at the desk, as we'll talk about a little bit more in depth shortly, your hips are in flexion. So these muscles are getting used a little bit, even though you're not adding load, but you're in flex position. So they're going to continue to tighten unless we stretch and reset them. So anatomical position is that position we're striving for as often as possible. And that's when our body is happiest and healthiest. So what happens when we move? Well, our muscles make us move. We've got to contract particular muscles to get some movement happening. So for example, if I wanted, as I said before, bring some food from our hand to our mouth, I'm going to flex the bicep. Okay, so that muscle is going to shorten to allow that hand to get up to your mouth. Okay, if I wanted to sit down, I'm going to have to flex my hips, which means I'm going to engage my hip flexors, so iliacus and psoas, to go down to the chair. That's what happens. Okay, if I'm going to run and pull my heel up to the bum, we're going to have all these hamstring muscles contracting to lift the heel up. All right, so muscles must contract or shorten to make a movement happen. Now, in saying that, every muscle in the body is paired up. So this is where we talk about trying to create balance and allowing the muscles to be nice and in sync and not stronger than the other or weaker than the other. Okay, so every muscle, so the biceps with the triceps, the hamstrings with the quads, we've got front and back. We've also got sideways as well. So the side of your shoulders here is paired up with your lats, these muscles on the back that make your shoulder go up and down. So every muscle in your body is paired up with another one. So that creates an opposing movement. So we talk about flexing the elbow to get your foot up. If you want to get your arm back down by your side, you need to extend the elbow to make it go straight. So bicep on the way up and then tricep on the way down. Okay, and even though it's not in the gym or under resistance, every movement you do is against gravity. So there's a little bit of resistance. So that's where overuse continuous movement trains muscles to be shortened. I'm sure we've all had it when we've gone to sleep on the side and the shoulders come up towards the ear and you stay asleep for 6 to 8 hours with that shoulder elevated and you wake up and your muscles going, well, you've told me to be there for 6 hours. I'm just going to stay here. So that tight trap kicks in and then you're quite stuck until that relaxes and lets go. But again, it's whatever you do with your body, it's going to respond to. So how do those muscles actually contract and move? Well, it happens with our nerves. So the nerves from our cervical spine up here, from the base of your skull down towards the shoulders, cervical spine takes control of all your arms, your shoulders, and your hands. Okay, so if you happen to get a really tight forearm muscle, say on the outside here on the elbow, you see with people a lot of typing and clicking of the mouse, if there's a little blockage along here and that nerve's a bit sensitive, you can often get pain back up into the neck as well. Tight hands and forearms, again, can refer back up towards the neck, but all the time, if you're using your hands and creating movement with your hands, those nerves are making those muscles stimulate and move to make that happen. So down at your lumbar spine, so we're talking mid to low back, and your sacrum, we're controlling and stimulating the muscles of the legs and the feet and your hips. So anywhere along the way, that's where sometimes you can get a referral pain back into this sort of L5, S1 is a really common one because when you sit, this one moves around a lot. But any sort of, or any movement, running, walking, sitting, lunging, squatting, stepping up, whatever it may be, it comes from the nerves of your lumbar spine and your sacrum down here. All right, so they're giving signals all day long, up and down towards each other to help muscles move. So your body is constantly adapting to what you're doing with it or what you're not doing with it. So there's signals that come from your nerves to make muscles move on the way out. And then there's a signal back to the nerve to say, yep, we're all good, we're clear, or there's a blockage and some pain comes. So, if you're stagnant and the body's in an uncomfortable position, pain's going to come along. It can give you that signal, and then it's going to always keep telling you because you're not in that right spot. So if you're, for example, seated for a long period of time and it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger in your lower back, you have to listen to that. You can't push through that. Otherwise, that signal is going to get stronger and it's going to take longer to undo. So let's look at the desk position now. So I'm sure ergonomics are great, but there's still messaging that goes on even when your desk is set up in a really perfect ergonomic situation. So from anatomical position, if we imagine our skull and spine being perfectly straight, 99 times out of 100 people lean forward and have a forward head carriage. All right, so that starts to push everything forward, and then that has a knock-on effect down through the spine. Okay, so we're going to look at how we can combat that shortly with the different exercises to help you feel better for a longer period of time. Next one, internally rotated and protracted shoulders. So don't forget, everything that I'm saying here is relative to anatomical position. So internally rotated means those shoulders are falling forward, okay? And protracted is exactly that, they're going forward. The opposite to that being external rotation, and retraction is when the shoulder blades come and pinch together, which we'll do shortly. But when these internally rotated shoulders occur, the muscles at the front of the shoulder and and the chest activate, even just slightly, and these upper trap muscles here, they start to kick in as well because everything's sliding forward. All right, so we've got internally rotated and protracted shoulders when we're sitting in this desk position, which is a great ergonomic setup right now, but just because all the action is happening in front, we're moving forward and internally rotated and protracted from anatomical position. We have flexed elbows. So we've got this bend here at 90 degrees. So again, that bicep and these forearm muscles are a little bit contracted because there's no way it couldn't have got there without bending up, and it's just staying that way. So if you're in this position, as I said, for sort of 8 hours, these arms are going to get locked up. And as I said before, anything that's creates a little bit imbalance, there's going to be a nerve signal going back up to the cervical spine, and we could have a little bit of pain saying, hey, there's something going on within this area somewhere. We need to unblock the chain. We've got flexed and internally rotated hips. So if this lady was stood up at an anatomical position, to sit down, had to flex the hips and create this angle. So the muscles at the front of the hip have shortened, and they're in that shortened position for that period of time. The opposite side, the glutes, are doing absolutely nothing. So that's why most people will be really underactive in their glutes and too tight in the hip flexors. Okay. When we talk about internal rotation of the hips, we've got the knees coming in towards each other. So that's the inside of the legs, inside of the thighs as well, coming in closer. So everything's rolling inwards and also flexed as well. All right, so that again creates a lot of imbalance, but 99% of people that I've seen come into this position. Now, moving on to the flexed knees. So again, if this lady was stood up at anatomical position, she stood down, the knees had to bend, and the knees bend via the hamstrings. All right, so these muscles here are starting to shorten, even though it's no load, but they're just shorten to get to that position. All right, so even though it's a great ergonomic setup, there is lots going on here in this body, and there's lots of reasons why people feel really uncomfortable after 1, 2, 3 hours of work, right, in these positions, because we've moved from anatomical position, but the stretches and exercise I'll give you today will be able to balance out these to get you back towards anatomical position as often as possible. So let's talk about forward head carry. So this exercise is all about simply pushing your head back towards your seat if you're in the car, or if you're just standing, as a demonstration will show you. It's very flattering. You're trying to give yourself as many double or triple chins as possible, okay, without tilting your head up or back. So I'm simply pushing the head back, trying to get back to anatomical position. You can see even I've got that forward head carriage, that's exaggerated. Pushing the head back, not looking up into extension. We're simply trying to push back. I said it was a really good one to do in the car. You're just sitting at the lights and you forget, just try and push your head back a little bit to help straighten out that spine. So it's not too flattering, it's not pretty, but it does the job in terms of just retraining that position, trying to get your head back into a great, nice neutral position and anatomical position. All right, it says 5 to 10 repetitions, but again, it's as frequent as you can, as often as you can, because life happens in front of us and we're always carrying our head forward a little bit. So as frequently as you can is going to help with that forward head carry and help counterbalance that. Next up, we'll look at some internally rotated and protracted shoulders. And to counterbalance that, we're going to do some back squeezes. So if the shoulders are forward, we're talking about internally rotated. That's that position there, protracted, trying to retract. Okay, so from shoulders forward, and you can see the traps coming up, we're trying to drop the shoulders back. So this position here, I'm trying to roll the shoulders back, pinching the shoulder blades together, trying not to lift up in this direction whatsoever. So rolling the shoulder blade back, pinching the spine with your shoulder blades really helps get that retraction happening. Now, unfortunately, there's nothing in life that really does that. You need to consciously think about it. So your shoulder blades, this kind of triangle shape. At this point, it's rolling forward in internal rotation, then we're trying to pull back and pull together. So that helps that posture, and you can see the shoulders dropping down. It helps retrain those shoulders that are coming forward during work. All right, it's a really common thing, but simple back squeezes as often as you can, either throughout the day or after you brush your teeth, do 5 to 10 reps just to get these muscles here in between your shoulder blades, called your rhomboids, activated, because there's nothing in life that really stimulates this naturally. You've got to think about it and let it do it as often as you can remember. So that's our back squeezes. Right? Taking your time, just making sure the shoulders are away from the ears. Another one to help with those internal rotated shoulders and protracted shoulders, we're going to do some external rotations. So with your arm at 90 degrees, you're simply rotating away, trying to wake up the muscles at the back. So here we're stretching the front of the chest and we're waking up the muscles at the back of the shoulder, the couple of smaller ones in the rotator cuff. Again, don't move fast. We're going to make sure we set the shoulder and then swing out as far as you can. Notice my hands open as well. All right, trying to open up the hand, open up all those muscles in front. This is all about waking up the muscles at the back of the shoulder, promoting this range of motion here, and then obviously getting back as far as you can. You notice as you get better at it, you'll be able to get your wrist sort of in line with your shoulders, but it does pull through the chest quite a little bit. As I said, your body responds to whatever you do to it. So if you're working 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 hours in that seated position, these chest muscles are going to get really tight. These upper trap muscles here are going to get tight. We've got to try and deload them with some nice movement. So 5 to 10 per side, just focusing on dropping the elbow in and promoting that external rotation. All right, this next one is our clap pull aparts. All right, again, looking at 5 to 10 reps. So we're going to drop the shoulders away from the ears from a clap position, swing your arms as wide as you can without elevating your shoulders. So it means push down, then pull away from each other, straight arms, straight hands, opening up the front of the chest, so not elevating. So even if the first time you do this, use the mirror, just to make sure you're not lifting up the shoulders, because then you're just going to add to the problem. Allowing those shoulders to drop. So from behind, shoulders come down. This stimulates all through the mid-back. Again, opening the arms really long. You might get a strong pull through the front of the arms because we're stretching the front of the body and strengthening the back of the body. Okay, so remember we spoke about every muscle in the body being paired up. As we strengthen and contract the mid-back, it means we're stretching and opening the front of the chest and front of the shoulders. So we really need to focus on trying to develop this area here and just wake it up as often as possible, because work and life does enough of the front for us. Okay, this one's quite similar, but this time I'm going to go thumbs out, pull apart. Again, 5 to 10 reps every time you remember, but the more often you can do them, the better. Again, dropping the shoulders, rotating out. So we're getting that external rotation here, makes it a bit stronger. But you can see dropping the shoulders down, getting set, making sure these shoulders don't rise up, and just pull apart as far as you can first. You're going to be different. It's going to be tight the first time, but the more times you can open up the elbows, stretch out the chest. Right? I said we don't want to bunch up because that's just going to add to the problem. Drop the shoulders away from the ears, pull nice and wide, and trying to point your thumbs to the back. You may even struggle to actually rotate your thumb out at first. Okay, but work with what you've got and make sure that these upper trap muscles are relaxed and we're using the mid-back. Now, don't just rush through it as well. Really try to visualize these muscles. Obviously, you can't see them in a mirror. You really, even sometimes closing your eyes, to help think about what they look like and visualizing these shoulder blades touching each other. They won't actually, but you need to close that gap as often as you can to help with those internally rotated shoulders. Okay, another one while you're seated at the desk is the overhead reach. Now, one arm at a time. You can see I'm on the desk. It's just taking your arm up and out. So palm open, alternating sides. Now, the key thing is to take your arm as wide as you need to so this shoulder muscle doesn't rise too high, or if at all. All right, so take your arms wide and get a stretch in the front of the chest and push up and back. So go really wide at first. So if you're bunching up in here too much, it's pinching the front of your shoulders, take your hands wider. So you go wide, reach back, open the hands, and spend some time as well. Give it 1 or 2 seconds. And then you can do the thumb out as well. So we're going to rotate out, thumb to the back, promoting that external rotation. So turn the thumb out, pull back. Again, the goal here is to stretch open. You can see when that arm's in front, this is closed up. And then once we pull back, it opens out. So just retraining those shoulders, reaching up and back, and avoiding arching your back as well. Just pulling your ribs down towards your hips to keep your spine straight. That'll give you a better stretch. All right, you got to just forget about trying to be the furthest. It's you just trying to stretch your body. To concentrate on moving well and opening up those shoulders. Get another one for the internally rotated shoulders is thumbs down to thumbs back. So we've got internal rotation on purpose here. We're going to rotate the shoulder, rotate the elbow, and turn the thumb back. And then it's thumb, elbow, shoulder. So I'm dropping the shoulder, rotating the elbow pit to the roof, and pointing the thumb back. You can see the shoulders forward there. Set it, roll, roll, and push right back. Lovely stretch, really opens up the nerves as well. Set your shoulder blades in the right position. Really opens up the front of the arm and front of the chest. Okay, so we start in that internally rotated position on purpose and then emphasize that external rotation. So simply thumbs down and then slowly roll and rotate to thumbs back. Right, encouraging that arm to be open. So we've got shoulder down, elbow to thumb. It's a nice move and it's really simple to do and very effective. Yeah. Now you don't need to be doing all these exercises, it's just remembering them as often as you can. Now you can see from the back, thumb down, drop the shoulder, really big rotation. So we're encouraging those forearms to open up, the biceps and the chest, everything at the front because we're contracting everything at the back. So once again, those shoulder blades locking in, squeeze the tricep, stretch all the forearms out. So this one's for our flexed elbows. So we have that 90-degree position for typing all day and being on the mouse. It's a little wrist stretch. Again, 5 to 60 seconds, as often as you can, just to help push your body back towards anatomical position. So just simply, oh, that's right, my fingers are a bit tight. So it's fingers down, extending the elbow and pull your fingers down. Now, the key to stretching is to do it regularly and not go aggressive. Okay, if you have pain while stretching, that means you're stretching too far. All right, it should be a stretch feeling, opening the hands, fingers down, nice long elbow, shoulders down, opening up all through the front. This next one is going to help with those flexed and internally rotated hips. So we call it this one the seated knee pull aparts. So again, I'm sure some of you may sit with your feet crossed or those knees fall in. What we're going to do is plant the feet and just simply pull the knees apart. So this one wakes up the muscles in the outside of the hip. Okay, it helps stretch the inside of the thigh. So we don't want to roll onto the outside of the feet. Stomp your feet flat, push into the ground and squeeze out as far as you can. Now this, as I said, really great to just help open up the adductors, which is the inside of the thigh, and wake up your glutes on the outside of the hip and help promote those knees into external rotation a little bit more. Again, for the hips, standing hip extension. So as I said, we've flexed the hips to get down into the seat. Now we're going to extend the hips to balance out. With your feet underneath your hips, we're just moving the pelvis. So you got to tuck your tailbone under Okay, so from here, with that arch in the back, you're going to turn your tailbone under and straighten your spine out. So you have to squeeze your glutes, squeeze your bum, all right, without arching your back. So ribs to hips to keep your spine straight. You let it untuck and retuck. All you do, because these hip flexors are doing all the work in sitting position, we need to squeeze your glutes and activate to get everything in a nice straight position. All right, so people, we call it a lordosis or a duck butt with the bum sticking out because the spine's arched. This way starts to bring it back the other way. So that's your standing hip extension. This one's feet wide hip extension. So you're just taking your feet a little bit wider, even just standing with your feet outside shoulders and tucking your tailbone under really gets a nice stretch through those adductors. And again, we're just trying to squeeze the glutes, tuck the hips under without moving your torso. So it's pelvis control, just to be able to roll back and forth, watching the belt just move down and back and then tucking under. Right, slow and controlled, feet flat. So this will be stretching all through the inside of the legs while opening up the hip flexors here in the front while the glutes do some work. Okay, lunges are a great exercise and people dislike them because they are uncomfortable through the hip flexors when you don't have that flexibility. So using your desk can help get you into some nice positions, because what happens here on the front leg, we're strengthening the glute, and on the back leg, we're stretching the hip flexor. So it's a 2-for-1. Now, the key setup is that your front foot's flat on the ground and this back heel comes up. People make the mistake of pushing the heel down. You have to be relaxed in that ankle to allow the knee to drop down. Now, if you can't go all the way down, that's fine. Go as low as you can while getting a stretch in the front and keeping your front foot flat. So don't rush these movements. If you go 10% of the way down, but you're getting a pull in the front of the hips, that's fine. Just come back up and you will get further and further the more often you do this. Yes, the goal is to get the knee underneath the hip, underneath the shoulder, but work with what you've got. Foot flat on the ground, never let the knee fall crazy forward, and let those hip flexors stretch. So we're going to have flexed knees, so they're bent. So we're going to work on straightening the leg and pointing the toe. Really good for circulation as well, this one. So from a seated position, squeeze the knee, point the toe, and then come back down. So squeezing your thigh, point the toe, nice slow and steady contractions, just trying to open up, as I said, contract the quad, point your toe, get some blood pumping, especially if you're seated there for a long period of time. Really good for circulation, but also wakes up the calf muscles, lengthens out the hamstrings. Okay, because when the knee's bent, they're closed up a little bit. So this one really helps open up. So don't throw the leg straight, really try and contract your muscles and move with control. All right, so let's talk about the science of belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing. Like I said, I'm sure you've heard it all before. Stop, take a breath. Just need to breathe more. But what's actually going on? So when you breathe correctly and you breathe in through your nose, take it all the way down, the lung opens up your abdominals, and when you exhale, your belly shrinks and you let all that carbon dioxide out, just stimulating your parasympathetic nervous system. So this is the part of your nervous system that calms you down, and it allows you to, it tells your body and your brain that, hey, everything's fine, we're in control. It eliminates that stress, but it actually just helps reset. On the flip side, when you just breathe into your chest, breathe out a bit faster, your breath rate's higher, you stimulate your sympathetic nervous system, which brings in fight or flight. Like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm sure you've done it before in a stressful situation, or you pushed yourself with a run or some exercise, or you're just getting worked up and a bit anxious, your breath gets a bit shorter. So that's that vicious cycle. When you're just breathing into your chest, you're telling your brain, oh, this is stressful, we're in trouble here. But when you slow down, breathe in, fill up your abdomen, make that expand, and then really contract it inwards, slow, deep breath out, you're triggering a different part of your nervous system. So it's critical, and it's not just hearsay, it's actual science of why this type of breathing is important to be able to do. All right, but it's something that we do, the first thing we do on earth is take that first breath, but we're never trained or taught how to breathe correctly. All right, so the ability to know how to do that is another tool. And it's such a rush kind of world, and we're told to move faster. And with that, you start breathing a little bit shorter, and that then tells your brain that everything's stressful. Okay, so yes, things in life are stressful and it happens, but the ability to control your own body through breath is not gobbledygook. It's science, and you're waking up and you're stimulating that parasympathetic nervous system, which helps you relax. So breathing in through the nose, a long, solid breath. All right, everyone's nasal capacity is different. Making your stomach expand is the big one. So the ability to draw the air in, have your belly get bigger on the inhale, and then when you exhale, it should be as small as possible. So for all those who've taken a photo and thought, breathe in, suck it in, well, you actually need to breathe out to make your stomach get as small as possible. All right, so we're going to practice that now. So you can either do it standing, but if you can't pick up and you feel that your chest is rising, a really good way to learn is when you're lying on your back. But what we're going to do is put one hand on your stomach, one hand on your chest. And as you take that inhale in, you want to feel the bottom hand go out. Okay, you don't want your shoulders to be rising up, because then we're adding tension. We're going to breathe, let the stomach go out, and then when you exhale, that hand comes in. So it's really slow. And then that deep. So breathe in, get that stomach expanding, and then let it all out and draw the belly button in. That gets as much carbon dioxide out of your body as possible. Bringing in that fresh oxygen, but more importantly, stimulating that parasympathetic nervous system. It can take 3 breaths when you're efficient, to maybe 15 to 20 if you don't quite have the skill of breathing correctly just yet. But even just doing these ones here, you should start to feel everything just feels a little bit different. You kind of get that nice trance. It just helps you refocus. It literally takes 10 to 40 seconds and it's all good. So really good skill to have if you've got a high pressure meeting coming up, if you feel like you're under the pump, you feel your shoulders rising, tension's going up. You don't have to do it for 10 minutes, even though meditation is wonderful, but those quick 5 to 10 breaths takes minimal amount of time, bit of stretch. You're going to help stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system, which is critical to helping stress levels drop. Okay, and be able to have that tool that allows you to get through your days with more enjoyment. All right. So, some takeaway points from today. Your body always gives you clues and it always wins out. So the whole, I've got a neck pain, she'll be right. I've got neck pain, she'll be right. Over time, if you're doing the same repetitive movements that has brought on that discomfort and you ignore it, it's not going to go away. All right. We want to eliminate the amount of painkillers and things, because pain is telling us that something is happening with the body. All right. And it's important to address it, because if a stretch, a little bit exercise fixes it, wonderful. But if it's something more sinister, we want to get it looked at. So pain is important, but we don't want to live with pain. And your body always wins out. All right? It's the boss by far. And your body will respond to what you do or don't do with it. So for example, if you stay in that work position all day for 8 hours straight and you have those internally rotated shoulders, those muscles get tight, your neck muscles lock on. And if you don't address it and go back the other way and counterbalance to get back towards anatomical position, it's not going to improve. Sorry, but the best thing, I don't want to scare you with that, but you are in control. You can reset your body. You can move, you can stretch, you can breathe to help things just change. Okay. And that's probably why you have jumped onto this workshop, because, your workday is challenging. Well, now you've got some tools that allow you to try to unwind those tight muscles to help you get through, because there's a reason why sitting we're not designed to sit, but it's a part of our lifestyle now. And don't get too caught up on yourself, all right? The perfectly balanced body doesn't exist, all right? So it's a constant battle. You might feel wonderful and wake up in anatomical position, or your body's feeling great, and then you sit down and have a 10-hour workday that's full of stress. You go and do a long walk, whatever it may be, you go use your muscles, which is great. It's just having the skills and tools to be able to unwind and reset. You cannot do the same repetitive movements and ignore them if they're giving you discomfort. Okay, if you're in a routine that has you feeling great, awesome, keep with it, keep doing it. You're probably getting close to that anatomical position more often than not, which is the big goal. So it's all about maintenance, using your body. And this is exactly what I'm saying. Use it, reset it. Use it, reset it. You got to use your body. We've got to do it for work, driving, office work, whatever it may be, even eating food, all happens in front of us. So there's particular muscles that get worked way more often than some others, which can cause those imbalances. So the more that we can reset and try to keep that balance, the more comfortable you'll be, the more fun you'll be able to have with your body, because you can trust it and you can work with it. So as I said, this is all general in nature, this information and advice, but if you do want to have a talk further, I'm happy to chat via email. There's my email there. And if you have any input on what you'd like to see in the future for future workshops, please let me know. But there'll be more up on my website, stretchspecialist.com.au, coming up. So thank you very much for jumping on board this workshop. I hope you've taken away some pointers, and just start trying one thing at a time. Stretch out those shoulders, open up a little bit, try to be as close to anatomical position as possible, and your body will start to thank you for it. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.